Hello everyone, this is Cole from the Edison Club, and today I want to showcase you my Gladiator beast deck that I won my Edison pod with at the NAWCQ. And let's not waste any time, let's just go ahead and get into the deck profile. And starting off with monsters, we have 3 Elemental Hero Prisma. I decided to go ahead and max out on Prisma, because I just want my game plan to be make Gazaris as fast as possible, and gain a card advantage over my opponent. And the combo with our Prisma, we're playing 3 Test Tiger. Test Tiger Prisma is a 2-card combo to make Gazaris, and Test Tiger, just one of the better cards on the deck, speeds up your deck, allows your Gladiator Beasts to get their effects immediately. And for Gladiator Beasts, starting out we have 2 Laquari. You need Laquari to go into your Heraclinos, and he is your biggest attack for all your Gladiator Beast monsters. You have 2 Darius. You need him to do your Prisma Test Tiger combo, and so 1 quite isn't enough. I like 2, plus he's 1700, which isn't too bad of a stat line with Gladiator Beasts, or the monsters you're referring to. 2 a quest. Since we maxed out on Prisma, we send Gladiator Beast monsters to the graveyard quite often, so it's nice to get some pluses with the quest. And then the 1 Bestiary, it's at 1, you need him to make your Gazaris, and Gazaris is very strong. 1 Gladiator Beast Rediari. I know the Sean McCabe special of the ratio of 2 Rediari was around for a while, and I tested it, and it came up at some points, but overall I feel like it was better to cut down on the monster count and just play the 1 Rediari. But of course we have the 1 more Mellow to get rid of monsters, and the 1 Secutor. I know some Gladiator Beast players like to play this in their side deck, or not at all, and I understand that because he is, with modern terms, a brick, but I feel like he's just too powerful, and when you resolve his effect, you most of the time win the game. That is it for the monsters. You'll notice there is no Rescue Cat, no Sam Knight, and I decided to go just towards a Prisma-centric build because this adds like another layer of bricks, kind of. Rescue Cat and Sam Knight, you can run them both together. You can draw Sam Knight, and also doesn't really do anything besides like what Prisma would do, which gets you closer to Gazaris. And I like a smaller ratio of monsters as well. And go ahead and going into the spells, we have 3 Book of Moon. Book of Moon, I mean, you could write an entire dissertation about Book of Moon. It's one of the most versatile cards in the format and in the game ever printed, and allows you to get your Gladiator Beast attacks off, save your Gladiator Beast from being attacked, save yourself from bottomless deep prison. It does almost everything you want it to do. Then I like to play 1 Proving Ground. This can search Bestiary, so you can set it in Contact Fuse. It's also just kind of like, I mean, Aroda is always good. Just being able to like search with Core to attack over a monster is really nice as well. And I felt like 1 was just fine for the ratio of cards that I have. And then I play 1 Shrink and 1 My Body as a Shield. So this was originally 2 Shrink, but spoiler alert, there's another My Body as the Shield in the side deck. And I needed to make room for another side deck card, you'll see later. And Shrink and My Body save the same purpose in protecting from Bottomless. And this is also just like really good in the Hero Beat and Blackwing matchup, because this stops Gemini Spark and they don't get a plus with it. And Shrink's just a good out to like cards generally, like bigger monsters, because that's what Gladiator Beasts have problems with. And Vanity Seed is also quite annoying. And for our last spell, we have Cold Wave. I know this can be a little bit of a debate between players playing the deck sometimes, but every time during the event the weekend I activated Cold Wave, I won. Personally, for me, I feel like this card is way too powerful in the deck not to play. So moving on to our traps. So we're maxing on Prisma, we're making Gazaris, and we want Gazaris to resolve and destroy cards. So we are playing 3 traps done. Just Gazaris Turbo, your traps don't matter. And the ratio of 3 worked well for me during the weekend. I also entered in the main event, but went X3, but that's fine. I still feel like the build itself is correct in the ratio of cards and card choices. It's just, Gladiator Beast isn't exactly the most competitive deck. And then we have 3-dimensional prison. So I didn't max out a dimensional prison. Like, cards like Smashing Ground are really strong in Gladiator Beast, but I feel like I wanted another layer of protection on my opponent's turn to have more interaction. So instead of running just a couple deep prisons, I didn't max out on it, and it worked out very well for me. Deep Prison is a very powerful card in the format. And then of course we have 2 Bottomless Trap Hole. Great generically, great against Blackwing, of course. And you want to just protect your Gladiator Beast monsters on their board, so you can later on make Zaris and start tagging to your Heraclinos and setting War Chariot. And then we also have 2 Wabogu. Wabogu is a really great card that I kind of undervalued going into the format when playing Edison. And, you know, it's sort of the classic GB card. I really like how it's a chainable trap, which is very, like, great when your opponents have cards like Heavy Storm. So, like, setting like a Wabogu and War Chariot is such a great summon set 2 kind of turn, because you can chain Wabogu and your War Chariot's recurable anyway, and your opponent can't attack over your Gladiator Beast for that turn anyway. So I feel like it's great to just kind of bait out cards like MST and Heavy Storm, as well as other cards like Breaker the Magical Warrior or what have you. And speaking of War Chariot, we have 2 Gladiator Beast War Chariot. This is a very, very powerful card, but I feel like when we're maxing out on cards like Trap Stun, and if you max out on cards like War Chariot, you sort of start to see a lot of cards that don't do anything on their own, only in combination with other cards. And so I feel like 2 War Chariot was a good number for me, and you'll see later that I side the third. And speaking of cards that don't do anything on their own, 2 Starlight Road. I know some players kind of a little iffy about this card in multiples, but I personally feel very strongly that 2 is a good ratio for this amount of traps that the deck plays. I feel like most of the games that I resolved this, I did win. It's always great to have protection when setting all your trap cards, because sometimes you definitely need to like set a few to have multiple interruptions for your opponent's turn. And this allows you just to play into sweepers like Torrential Mirror Force, Absolute Zero as well, Black Rose. And for our power traps, we have 1 Solemn Judgment, Insane, 1 Mirror Force, it's Mirror Force, and then of course 1 Trap Dust Shoot. There was a lot of non-games I played this weekend where Trap Dust Shoot really just did decide the entirety of the game, which is unfortunate, but it's a powerful card, so we play it. And then, next for the extra deck, of course, we have 3 Gladiator Beast Gazaris. This is the main game plan of the deck. You want to Trap Stun, Cold Wave, you want to Gazaris, get rid of your opponent's cards, gain card advantage. And then, once you have that, you make your Gladiator Beast Heraclinos, which we play 2 of. You set him up behind some protection with traps. And a card like War Chariot Heraclinos is something very hard to get over, and Heraclinos plus a Floodgate, which you'll see later in the side deck, is a very powerful post-side games 2 and 3. And then we have a fair amount of room in the extra deck, so we play 3 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. We do side Cyber Dragon. Sometimes people leave Cyber Dragon on the field with another machine, and we can take advantage of that. And some synchros, and for in case, I guess, we play the best ones. We play Catastor, play Brianak, play Goyo Guardian, Black Rose, Thought Roller Archfiend, and then of course our 2 Stardust Dragons for our Starlight Road. And that is it for the extra deck. Now, for our side deck, of course, we have the aforementioned 2 Cyber Dragon. Pretty much stable in side decks in Edison for the most part. Yeah, it's great just not against, like, only against machines, but, you know, just baiting out back row, attacking over big monsters, and the majority of the time your opponents are going to be siding in Cyber Dragons against you, and you can actually just side in 1 if you want to, because we main 3 Elemental Wheel Prisma, so you can Prisma copy Chimera Tech to send Cyber Dragon anyway, just to contact view, so that's another great thing about having 3 Prisma on the deck. And then we have 2 DD Crow. I like Crow over Fisher, personally, within the format, especially after looking to EU NAWCQ Edison winner, which is Narlaris Dragons. DD Crow is a very powerful card against that deck, and other decks in the meta as well, you probably know. And then that is it for the monsters in our side deck. And for the spells, we have one Mystical Space Typhoon, just for decks that have floodgates like Skill Drain, Mortal Depression, Black Whirlwind, all the floodgate type cards. And then our second My Body as a shield, and this card's been great. It's good generally against back row as well, because when we are in our main phase, we want to make Azaris, and this doesn't protect against Dimensional Prison, so we want to save ourselves from Bottomless Torrential, and this card will help us do that, and Gemini Spark, and cards of the like, Icarus Attack. And this lets us do that and make Azaris, and then get through set monsters and our opponent's back row. And then earlier I mentioned Heraclinos, games 2 and 3, backed by Floodgates, and some of the Floodgates we play are 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. So, the only monster that you have in the dark is Gazaris, which, like I said earlier, is your main game plan. But this against Value Turbo is very powerful, along with Trap Stun, which we'll be maxing out with against Value Turbo. So, you Shadow Imprison them, they can't do anything. You Trap Stun on their turn, turning off your own mirror, you can Gazaris them. It's a very powerful card, and it did pretty well in that matchup. And then we have 2 Light Imprisoning Mirror. Great against Lightsworn, great against Fairies. Shuts down the Recruiters. Shuts down Lila and Raikou, popping your back row and your monsters. And then for Frogs, we have 2 Mask of Restrict. We do have cards attributed in our deck, 3 Test Tiger. But I feel like 2 Mask is definitely very powerful against Frogs. We already have a favorable matchup against Frogs, but I feel like our 2 Mask Restrict and our 3rd War Chariot really kind of seal the deal for us for the most part. Soul Exchange is a very powerful card. It allows them to play around our War Chariot, and so Mask Restrict really puts some work against that card along with Enemy Controller. For the last 2 side deck slots, I elected to play 2 Compulsory Evacuation Device. This is a kind of general good trap, along with it can protect your own monsters. If I had my opponents activate like Smashing Ground, and you just chain compulse, put your guy back in your hand. Compulsing away Synchro monsters is great. It's out to Stardust, which is a big problem for the deck. And as well as, good at getting rid of set monsters. Like, you don't always want to summon a Gladiator Beast monster, set a War Chariot, and then wait for your opponent to flip a Raikou or a Snowman.